Good morning, afternoon, evening, good moment. I'm feeling confused and activated, which is the topic of this video. So I'm gonna sit and maybe guide a little meditation for 1 minute. If you want to join me, please do. If not, skip ahead from here. So, I'm feeling really sad and confused. I'm activated my trauma from my family's experience in the Armenian genocide and my own racialized trauma that I experienced as an Armenian in the South during the Jim Crow era of the U.S. history. It's all pretty activated for me right now for a number of reasons: war, climate change, and difficult interactions. I had an interaction with I had a consultation yesterday with a person that was in the middle of war. And they were preparing for a session with a client who is on the other side of the same war. And my consultee's question was, I don't know if I can show up for my client. And I felt my own inadequacy showing up for my consultee. I always contemplate mass extinction and compassion, the human species, all of our confusion. But I've been contemplating it very intensely lately, more and more intensely over the last 2 months. And it's been simultaneous with feeling hit really hard, put back into my own trauma by a number of situations in my family, in my work, and in the world. So for those of you that aren't steeped in the world of trauma. There's many definitions of trauma, and there's many definitions of activation. So here I'm talking about the feeling that my nervous system is overstimulated and primed toward preparing for death and fight or flight. I tend to go more to preparing for death, literally and neurologically. And I've been working with my primary method for working with embodiment, for working with trauma and activation, is through embodiment. And I've been working with, and meditation, both. Embodiment and meditation is how I work with myself. And also how I train people to, helping professionals to work with others through meditation and embodiment, and the two together, which I'm having more and more trouble distinguishing. So I call that embodied meditation. Pausing a lot. I've been working with the mantra slowly, kindly, gently. So at the moment I feel activation through my right eye and my right medial frontal lobe. Saying that, acknowledging that, my breath goes down into my belly. So I've been working with meditation and embodiment for 50 years, literally. So my process is different than people that haven't worked with it as long. And at this point, I've learned to work with others and keep a compassionate connection to my own internal state at the same time. I'm, pretty good at it after 50 years, but not perfect. Never perfect. That's the thing that I think is most important to realize, given the situation of humans on this planet. I thought when I was young that we were going to perfect things. I thought we were perfecting things. I thought we were learning from our political mistakes as a country. With Vietnam, I thought we learned that that was an ineffective strategy. I thought we had seen that the destruction that came out of the war was worse than what we were trying to avert. And of course, being an imperfect, confused, perfect person, I don't know that it was, but I thought at the time that it was clear and we had learned. I thought we were learning with civil rights in this country. And I think we have learned from warfare in the past and from our work with civil rights, human rights, now social justice. We're continuing to learn. I'm personally letting go of any expectation of human perfection. I used to believe it. I used to believe it existed. I have never seen it, and I don't think that it necessarily existed in history. You know, some people go back to early spiritual teachers and think that they had tapped into some kind of perfection, whether we call it enlightenment or divine perfection, that Jesus was actually a manifestation of God, God in the flesh. All of the other teachers that we've believed had achieved some kind of human perfection. I don't know, maybe they did, but I no longer believe in perfection. It's really helpful for me to recognize the inherent imperfection in myself and in others, and also the inherent deep desire to help, to do good, to do our best, knowing that our best is going to fail ultimately. A former colleague of mine, Karen Wagella, wrote a book, this is maybe in the 90s, How to Help Without Being a Nuisance. And I've been thinking about that title a lot lately. And I think she's right. I think that's the best we can aspire to. That's the best I can aspire to right now. How to help without being a nuisance. How to help without making things worse. And so rather than perfection, what I'm working with in myself is practice. And the practice of embodied meditation, the practice of both embodiment and meditation, separately or together. We come back. We have to come back. We have to come back to this awareness, this being, this person. And we have to come back in a way that's kind to this person, to ourselves. My belief is that if we don't come back with kindness, then the presence that we're trying to cultivate is going to be seated in aggression, seated with aggression, seeded, S-E-E-D-E-D. Coming back with kindness. Moment to moment to moment. If I don't come back to myself with kindness, then how could I possibly extend out toward anyone else with kindness? Slowly, gently, kindly, doing my best, never perfect. And specifically from an embodiment point of view, coming back to my breath, and letting go of trying to control my breath, because that desire to control or perfect then becomes, again, another seed of aggression. Coming back to my breath, coming back to my heart, my literal physical heart, feeling my chest, feeling my breastbone. There's heart behind your whole breastbone, sternum. That's the solid bone in the middle. The ribs aren't solid, right? You can feel there's gaps. There's heart behind your whole sternum. And that's important because that's a centralized piece of the heart. So when we say heart center in any of our yogic disciplines, we're talking about an experience of the heart that's centered, not sided, not biased, not personal. In my book, Heart Open, Body Awake, I call that the small heart, the emotional heart, the confused heart, the biased heart, the sided heart. And as soon as we get into sidedness and bias, you hurt me, well, you hurt me more. Well, your ancestors hurt my ancestors. Well, your ancestors hurt my ancestors more. Then we dissolve into aggression and chaos. All I know is to show up with as much presence and kindness as I can muster moment to moment. And when I get confused, I come back to my breath and to my heart and to the feeling of a centered, open heart, a present heart, not a heart that's caught in the confusion of emotions. A heart that feels centered and present and human and fleshy and imperfect and confused, so that I can be present for others when they're overwhelmed by their pain. That's my aspiration, but I don't do it perfectly. And I get activated, and then I have to work through my own trauma. Maybe someday we'll get to the point where we can be kind to each other and acknowledge all the pain, all the confusion we've inflicted on each other, all the horrible things that we have perpetrated upon each other. In a way that's kind to everyone, kind to ourselves, and kind to each other. In the meantime, we'll just have to do our best. I'm so sorry for my limitations, for my confusion, my becoming fixated on myself and my activated state, so that I can't be present for this beautiful world and all my beautiful brothers and sisters on this planet. And show up kindly. I hope this is helpful to you in your practice, wherever you're at. You know when you're doing your best. Most people err on the side of rising above their own pain too quickly. Let me rephrase that. I don't know if that's true. I think it's a huge accomplishment to get to the point where you can rise above your own pain. And most of my students and my consultees that I work with are at that point. Most of the meditators I know are at that point. It's a lot of work to get there. Most of the helping professionals I know are at that point. But what happens is then we rise above too quickly, and we don't acknowledge our limitations, and we don't acknowledge, I don't know if I can show up kindly and be present in this situation. I'm a confused person too, with my own activation. I do my best. So I hope that encourages you to be kinder to yourself, more patient with yourself, and more patient with the world around you. Thank you.